Hello and welcome to the Cuyamonga Institute, our Q&A conversation for exploration series. I'm Paul Robert, the Executive Director and President of the Institute, along with my wife, Laura Lee, the Director of Research, Education, and Outreach. And on behalf of our Board of Directors, our advisors, volunteers, and supporting members, we want to thank you for joining us today. The Cuyamonga Institute is an independent, nonprofit research organization committed to researching consciousness and the human experience, following the footsteps of our founder, anthropologist, Dr. Felicitas Goodman. And our focus is reflected in three main areas: experience, education, and exploration. We respect the path of academic balance, the creative pursuit of science, while advancing, conserving, and restoring a direct experience of that deeper human connection to all of life. So it's part of our mission to expand our own experiential research with the multidisciplinary understanding that's available to us today. And as an educational institution, we take an open approach. So we created these Sunday roundtable conversations and invite scholars in related fields to help broaden the scope of our own work and exploration. And that's why we call this Conversation for Exploration. We probably have over 150 of these discussions that are available on our website at cuyamongainstitute.com. Today, we continue our journey into that rich tapestry of cultures that once revered the goddess, the societies that place the divine feminine at the center of life. In addition to this historical perspective, we also want to look at the contemporary revival of the goddess. This modern movement seeks to reconnect with ancient traditions while addressing the needs and challenges of today's world. We want to also broaden the conversation even further. We want to explore how this resurgence plays a pivotal role in reshaping our understanding of our universe and our place in it.
Well, we've long been celebrating women and the goddess making her comeback. That is reclaiming her rightful place in our worldview and in our culture. I think of the cosmos as the womb of creation, and new science is confirming that this is not the cold, dark machine, its dying embers slowly running out of juice. Rather, this is a living and evolving and self-regulating being, spinning with regenerative power through us and through all that is. Quite a more exciting worldview in which to inhabit. The goddess is shorthand for this, into my mind. And our guest today says our image, our understanding of the goddess is necessarily evolving along with us for our time. The goddess is here for all of us, be it with direct experience, academic research, and just the delight of being alive and embodied and feeling the life force ebb and flow through us. She's here. We're pleased to add to our ongoing discussions of the goddess one of the earliest voices in ecofeminism, Bernice Marie-Daly. She's an educator. Do you want to put her on screen? She's an educator, a retreat facilitator, and she holds degrees in spirituality and psychology, counseling, and philosophy. She's a certified core energetics instructor and practitioner. She's founder and director of Awakenings, the new school for women's spirituality. And she's facilitated programming in women's spirituality, justice making, and the arts. Her book, Ecofeminism, Sacred Matter, Sacred Mother, and we'll talk a lot about that connection, was published by the American Teilhard Association. She co-authored Created in Her Image, Models of the Feminine Divine. She's taught interdisciplinary courses in environmental studies, in women's studies at Fairfield University, and world religions at Norwalk Community College. And we're pleased to say hello. And we want to thank our mutual friend, Brian Tugger, for the introductions here, Bernice. And we also want to add Brian really quickly to help add to these introductions. But hello and welcome, Bernice, first of all.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Brian, thanks again for bringing so many of these voices to our forum here.
Yeah,
today.
It's a pleasure to hear, especially to hear you today, Bernice. So glad you can join us. I wanted to say I consider you a friend and a colleague, and just quickly to mention our connection through, it's hard to mention our connection without also mentioning the Guild for spiritual guidance, because we belong to this adult contemplative education program. And Bernice was the chair for many years. And I really witnessed her leadership style and saw how many of us thrived under that model. So I learned a lot from Bernice about divine feminine, and it clarifies my own understanding. So I'm really glad to hear you bring your voice today to us.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. As always, very eloquent, Brian.
As always, yeah.
Well, how
Yeah.
did your journey begin? You said that you grew up Catholic, and that is supposed to encompass all, right? This term Catholic, but not so much women represented in there in equal stature.
You noticed. You
No
noticed
offense
that,
to Mother Mary or Mary Magdalene, but yeah.
huh? Yeah.
Where did you?
Yes, I did grow up Catholic. And I like to teasingly say I have 1,000 years of Catholic education. And actually, I've always had a strong sense of the sacred presence, even as a child. And yeah, the feminine is not terribly respected within that tradition. And I actually came upon the divine feminine as I was involved in writing an article on the goddess. And interestingly enough, I initially didn't want to do it at all because of my coming from the Catholic tradition at that time. This was pretty anathema. This was pretty verboten. This was not a good deal. But one thing led to
Did it
another.
seem like
So,
heresy at the time, almost?
oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I would say probably pretty much so is. But anyway, one thing led to another, and I in fact did write this chapter, which ended up from my book that I co-authored, Created in Her Image. So what happened was I had never encountered any of this before, despite my 1,000 years of Catholic education. Was one of my questions to myself was, how come I never heard of her ever? And so I came upon a whole new vista of life and history, matristic cultures, art forms, rituals, ways of living, societies, everything. And it really impacted my journey actually from that moment on, which is more than 30 years ago now. And it energetically shifted. And my journey converged around this energy that I have called the goddess. And with that, it exposed the devastation to our collective soul because she has not been embraced, less by the West than the East, perhaps. And also, it revealed that this loss has been going on for millennia, And so it's compounded, shall we say. And it also catalyzed for me ways of looking for how she is returning. What is this reemergence into our lives now and for planet Earth and for the future? Because we're in a bit of a hard time here. And the kind of the most compelling experience I had was with the Hindu goddess Kali, Kali, and that was a sort of a revelation, if you will, of the damage that has been done is so significant that unless we humans change our ways, it's going to be catastrophe. Now, this book was published in 1990. So we're talking that a long time ago, and that impacted everything I have done since. And now, which I have to say, I didn't realize, even as I was teaching about some of these things, that we would be living in a moment of such catastrophe on this planet. Like so many different crises, a variety of crises, meta crises have come together, which is unfortunately exactly what she said. So that was a primary sort of takeaway, if you will, my experience with Kali.
You say that you were energetically shifted by this. This is imbued on such an energetic level as well. It's coming up through that. The science is confirming it. Our practices are confirming it. Our society is confirming the loss of this. But it is so energetic. Can you describe that for you?
Well, what happened after this experience is sort of, like I said, impacted really the rest of my life, to be honest. Was I went into a really intense, creative, long period, several years, a number of years, where the creative juices, if you will, were sort of overlapping one thing into the next. Blah, 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 blah. pretty, 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 pretty definite. Now, I had, as Brian mentioned, I had the influence of the Guild, which is essentially explorations in Jung, Teilhard, and the mystic traditions. And I had lived in Mexico City for 3 years, which was a
Oh, wow.
profound experience.
Oh,
I was thinking of it yesterday when I was looking at your goddess, the god sculpture that you shared in the Olmec culture and so forth. Early on, I also had opportunity to meet Matt Fox, who was pivotal.
Mhm.
And then I had opportunity to meet Thomas Berry and Brian Swim through the American Teilhard Association. And our association, actually, Brian Swim, that is, wrote recently a book, Cosmogenesis.
Right.
And he kind of talks about that period of his life. And that's sort of the time in which I was involved, tangentially involved with that. And then I also did a number of years of body work
Mhm.
around core energetics. And I've also done a number of goddess tours. So she has really made a difference. It is a transmutation of consciousness is how I see this mythical imagination, vision for the future, moving toward wholeness. So the first thing I did was this program called Awakenings, which it was a year-long bi-monthly residential program. That was when we used to meet in person. If you remember that. We used to
Yeah, I
meet in
remember those
person.
Remember
days.
those days?
Yeah, remember that?
We're showing our age. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And well, yeah, yeah. And also a 6-day summer intensive. And there were a group of about 12 to 15 women that would come, and there was a thematic for each of the gatherings, but it was mostly experiential, or I would say it was weaved, a theme weaved into some material, but then entering into it an experience. In spirituality, justice making in the arts, and by that I mean spirituality, which is not limited to any particular religious tradition. Justice making, to me, has to do with connecting the dots between our inner life and what we create in the outside world. So there's no separation. There's no separation. And my understanding of the arts that I have used has been a really broad understanding of art forms, because I'm not an artist per se, but there's a lot of art forms, excuse me, music, poetry, and a lot of ceremonies. We did a lot of ceremonies, chanting, drumming. One of the things we did, we had a theme, was about sort of reclaiming yourself as you're in your goddess energy. And so we had for example, part of the weekend was a chanting of a phrase, and we'd all get up and walk around chanting and drumming while we're saying this. I am a wise woman. I am a storied woman. I am a goddess. My soul will never die. Over and over. I am a wise woman. I am a storied woman. I am a goddess. My soul will never die. This accumulative over a weekend time
Yeah.
brings a lot of energy. Brings a
Yeah.
lot of energy.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna love ritual postures with goddess figures. Oh, wow. It's just a piece of that. Well, let me just ask here that you mentioned art forms, rituals, ways of living, and this was how our early cultures celebrated, did ritual, embraced, grew, bonded, lived in this very embodied way. And it's just interesting to me, and I'd like to get your take on it. We're students of Felicitas Goodman and Maria Gimbutas. We love her work. We have all of her books. We celebrate that. You are a student of Maria Gimbutas in addition. it just puzzles me and saddens me that the academic world has really pushed imbued off to the side. But she's documenting how these early cultures lived the goddess, celebrated
Right.
the goddess, embraced and imbued, worked with her in their art forms, in their culture, in their city planning, in their housing, and everything that they did. It was present. And I'm thinking, wow, for our society or for academia to deny us embodying this and living it and energetically
Right.
is just missing the point. Because if these
Yes.
early cultures that you study did that, why not do that to really see what they are and who they are from the inside out? And I think that's one of the things that Goodman did. Hey, this is what early cultures did. Let's live it from the inside out and see from that lens. In addition, the object and the
Absolutely.
subjective separation, artificial separation, is really not applying anymore. And this world needs to open up. They need to let all of us in, all of our wisdom, all of our anecdotal and direct experience. We're at a time now when we just need to break it open, and every piece of the puzzle that we can bring to the table to get through the abyss and leap over to the other side and create the world that we want to live in needs to be honored, I guess. So I appreciate what you're doing, but I wanted your take on that.
Well, I've retired from academia now, but my experience of what you in the time I was there was exactly what you were saying. I created a number of courses, which I can talk about a little later, but I tried to create a course called Goddess Myths. And, it has to go through all kinds of committees. And what I was able to do was sort of put it out once, sort of try it once and see what happens kind of thing. And of
Mhm.
course the students came, but it didn't get through the committees. That was the end of it. That was beyond the beyond of possibility. Now I have to acknowledge I
Hey,
was in a university that just was not going to be open to that. So I took different approaches, but to me that whole experience is so energetic. I mean, I just felt I was just totally immersed in that kind of energy, which I felt yesterday, again, kind of dipping back into that space because
oh, when you
it's
joined us,
really
thank you.
enlivening,
Yeah.
Yeah.
really enlivening. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it's a razor's edge because you're dealing with the rejection from academia, but also from your own traditional religious values that the traditional religions also wanted to push back on the fact, even a discussion about the goddess. And so you've had to go on this very narrow path to be able to share. And I think it's changing though. It's changing.
Oh, yes.
I'm wondering
It's breaking
if
open.
you put that proposal today, whether or not the committee would approve it, versus even 5 years ago. Everything is shifting. Hopefully it is.
But we don't always need the academic seal of approval. We've got
Right.
all of these other forums in which to
Right.
activate all of this. But I want to
Right.
ask
But
you,
it takes researchers like this to push that envelope for the research,
think of
for the
I think you mean
academia
all
to,
of the
say,
above.
okay, all right, we get it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But I want to
Yeah.
say, why is our culture so afraid of this? Why did it depress this for so long, so many millennia, as you pointed
This
out?
is a big one.
And so here's what I want to add to this. We were sitting down at the Whitby Institute, New Cosmic Story,
Right.
with other people doing events and leading people in various things. And I said, it's so exciting to one of them that wow, people are so ready to just activate this and see the spark and go on the hero journey for this adventure and really define our own worldview here. And he said, "Oh, I about 10% of the people that I meet are ready to do that." And I'm like, "Really?" Like in our community, it's like, well, maybe they're self-selecting. They're all ready. They're all doing it. They're all in the midst of the journey. We're just sharing notes of the journey along the way. And he said, no, he said he meets so many people that feel the spark or get the call to adventure, but are afraid to step out and don't or squash it. I'm like thinking, well, that's a metaphor for our entire culture. Has
Yeah.
squashed
Yep.
this.
Yeah.
Why?
Yes.
Why
Right.
do you think
Right.
that is?
Right. Well, apparently she's pretty threatening.
Yeah.
I think there is, I know when we're doing more lectures and going out into groups and so forth, I noticed that there was a visceral response. I finally concluded a visceral response that on some level, our body and our psyche knows that to embrace this will turn your life and the world upside down.
Mm.
Blue pill, red pill, right there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it, say, represents such a different perception of reality and such a different kind of engagement. Now, the irony, of course, is that quantum physics is doing it for us now.
Oh, thank you. We celebrate and hold that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, and of course, the scientists were all, they're like, what? So we've had, 100 years or whatever of sort of, not me, I'm not that old, of grappling with quantum physics, which nobody really understands, and that's fine. But you begin to see a reconnection between spirituality and science, which has been out to lunch for at least 500 years.
Mhm.
And
Come back
I
in.
don't,
Come on, your break's over. Yeah.
I don't, I don't, I'm not engaged with the Catholic Church and have not been for a very, very long time. So I really don't worry about them. um, uh, and I understand, and maybe one of you remember the date. I don't. But I believe Pope in the not too distant past, 10 years, 20, maybe it's even 20 years, I don't know, apologized to Galileo.
Yes. Wasn't
So
that
that was
the
good. It's just a
little
little bit,
Yeah.
a little late.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking to those sources. And also, really, our turn that's going on
Mhm.
is moving away from the kind of what they call the axial age, religious stories, religious traditions. The creation story, for example, just, I mean, the Genesis story is really the creation story of the West, if you happen to believe it or not, etc. But that's just not cutting it anymore. We have what David Bohm, I think, referred to as an incoherence. We know that we are not the center of the universe. We know that there are many galaxies. We know certain things about how the universe works now. We just kind of can't pretend that we live in a flat planet anymore. I mean, we know too much.
Yeah.
But our theology, our cosmology, our psychology, and certainly our
Has to catch
education
up to this.
haven't, it's threatening. It's threatening.
Mhm.
But isn't it exciting, though, this new cosmic story? Hey, we are part of this universe. It's evolving. We're evolving because it's evolving. We're a piece of it. We're 14 billion years old. We've got the regenerative power. I mean, what a
Mhm.
beautiful place in the cosmos that but all of life holds. That's a
Mhm.
much more
Absolutely.
refreshing, revivifying, exciting, and empowering story. So what's the big
Absolutely.
hesitation? And I do want to say that thank you to Brian Tucker again. Stephen Martin joins us,
Next week.
cosmologist, who also says, hey, I'm here to marry consciousness and cosmology. That's where this is all going. That's
Right.
where the new physics and understanding is leading us right back
Mm.
to that understanding that we
Right.
say our ancient people embodied because of direct experience,
Which
because of
brings-
spiritual traditions like ours and many
Right.
others.
Right.
Mm.
Hey, I'm going to, yeah, we could be
Coming-
right there.
Coming back
Yeah.
to the divine feminine, of course, being a significant element to that. First of all, just releasing that isolation that we've created in our lives and our
Right.
consciousness, our way that we
Women
approach
as
the world.
original sin. Yeah. Can we let that one go?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, so being able to bring it back into our whole cosmology, if we're going to use that term, and our cosmology of how we think and believe and how we
We now have
progress.
the tools to tell us that story
Yeah,
and
and
also accept it, right? That's
yeah.
one of the bridges.
Yeah, and you mentioned Matt Fox. And I would say those researchers, those people that are in the trenches that are still trying to keep the door open to the traditional religious
The
thing and
piping
saying,
excommunicator.
yeah, well, he went the rough one, but Richard Rohr, he's out there doing his
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
talking about the cosmic Christ and all of that, but still trying to work within the confines of still helping the religious, saying you're losing the battle because you're not allowing the evolution of discussion to happen. So anyway, not changing the topic,
And
but simply
where are all
saying,
the feminine voices, here's one of them as
Right.
well.
yeah.
So,
So yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you, Paul. There's about 20 things that to talk about just what you just said.
That's how I
Thank
function.
you, Beck.
Throw a dart. Go ahead and choose one.
I mean, like, I don't know where to begin.
And also, how is the goddess evolving? That's exciting too, because talking about evolution, we're evolving. So
Right.
is our relationship to that.
You can follow up
Right.
on any of the above.
Yeah.
So one of the things that has stuck to us, if you will, is our sense of who we are as separate beings. We're separate. We have this whole sense of separation.
Right.
And that's part of the incoherence. And we have this strong desire to belong. And we need a cosmic story now because we're come to realize that we are cosmic beings. We're earthlings within a larger cosmic story. And this I'm isolated and separate. This isn't going to cut it. Our psyches are like, no. So that's one thing. Well, then you have people like Thich Nhat Hanh, for example, who embraced and spoke so clearly about what he called interbeing, which is part of Buddhist thought, interbeing, which is actually, if you want to go back, and I don't want to defend Christianity here, but if you go back to a broader and deeper understanding of incarnation,
Right.
which Ilia Delio is really working on, expands the whole notion. And of course, Teilhard placed matter itself, everything that is, basically, energetically, if it's my chair, or if it's the air, or if it's a photon somewhere, is all imbued with energy and consciousness into varying kinds of degrees and functioning. And everything is intrinsically, intimately connected with everything else.
And
if that's
matter,
not a goddess story,
as it's been pointed out, same root word. Yeah.
right. And if that's not a goddess story, I don't know what is. You know, it is such a, I guess one of the pictures that I used to draw, I would take a piece of paper and I would draw a circle.
Mhm.
And now maybe not you in your crowd, as you said, you're already there, but most people are not. So if I were to draw a circle and say, imagine this is the universe. Okay, well, we already know this is terribly inappropriate, but nonetheless, pretend with me this is the universe. Where is God? Now, where is the average person walking down the street going to place God?
Right in the middle.
No,
No,
outside of the
you would.
circle, looking at the circle.
Outside the circle.
I-
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
went really
Very good,
different.
Paul. Very good, Paul.
You're bringing your own
That is
cosmology into it.
Okay.
right.
You know.
That's exactly right. So what happens? We have separation. We have God somewhere else. We have, we ended up with a white straight guy up in the sky, none of which works anymore. May have been very helpful at one time, not working anymore.
Right.
So the thing is that when you take God and you have a circle, maybe I should just draw one if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, there's my circle. And from the old cosmology and the old understanding, God is over here somewhere outside the circle.
Right.
All powerful, all knowing, all this, all that, all the other thing. And the cosmos is finished. It's all done. However,
It's
when you
static.
have,
It's no longer evolving.
that's
Just
right. It's
dying.
not moving, it's not changing, it's not creating. If you have a different model, to answer your question of why we have such a hard time with this, here's your universe. And if it's a goddess image giving birth, where is she? Everywhere in here, within the universe, giving birth. From her own body, of course, from her own essence, from her own self, from her own beingness. Which means we're of that. That's our home. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that gives us
Again, you're
premise.
you're already converted, you know.
Converted to the center.
More fun place to live, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that explains then why we then go ahead and separate objective and subjective, and we want to be the objective observer, and yeah, that explains a lot. I hadn't really understood it in those terms before.
And there is an evolution happening, and there is a thing with the Gen Zers don't have the same level of attraction to traditional religions, and they're looking outside of it, trying to figure things out, or they're ignoring all of it because none of it makes sense to them. But
Right.
you know, there's a shift happening,
Yeah.
and hopefully that shift will be the direction that we're talking
Can
about
we look
here.
at a shift historically that has been cited by the archaeologist, anthropologist? You mentioned Mesoamerica. So they say, what happened to the Mayan culture? Why did all the people just suddenly abandon their big, beautiful city-states and go back to the jungles and small villages and just live? Because those Mayan people are alive and well today. And the premise was, well, climate change back then and drought, their leaders, they no longer trusted them. Their worldview fell apart. It wasn't delivering on the goods promised, right? And so they just picked up and left. That's one scenario that I've heard. So I think similarly, if our institutions, if our basic worldview and our current cultural story is making promises that are not delivering, if we can see the fallacy, if we can see the man behind the curtain and the machinations, then we're no longer trusting it. And that's when the cracks appear and a new story emerges, that it goes deeper and makes more sense and resonates more with our direct experience and our soul and our perspective. So I think we're in the midst of that kind of shift, obviously, right? So
Yes.
it's
Optimism.
Yes.
it happens of
Yes.
its own accord. It's just we're evolving as the cosmos is evolving. How is the goddess evolving? Tell us about your understanding of her attributes,
It's
what
sort
she
of
represents, how she has
stagnant
served
thing,
cultures,
right.
why she went underground, but how she's reemerging today and in what form.
Well, after I did some of this work with Awakenings, I also wanted to, or decided I wanted to get my doctorate, and wanted to get my doctorate in the divine feminine. So, like, where do you go to get a doctorate in divine feminine? So, anyway, one of the people on my committee was Hewart Cousins, who was a world-renowned theologian, pioneer in interreligious dialogue, and a visionary for what is considered the post-axial age. That is the time period after the institutional religions have either reformed from the inside out, have transformed, or fallen apart altogether. We need them. That's a whole other conversation. Anyway, what happened was I was involved in, my thesis was basically that the divine feminine or goddess has re-entered our age, and she is the primary image for spiritual empowerment and process and a leap of consciousness. And so I became involved in many different segments for this study, and as diverse as implicit the David Bohm's work on the implicate order and quantum physics, and also ecofeminism a bit, and also in contact with various lineages, including the Mayan, not so much to study their culture or their history, as much to see what was happening to them now. And also conversations with people who were first generation or most second generation, who came from the Philippines or Sudan and other countries, see what had happened to them and their values and what they were struggling with. I wanted to get a picture of what is the most important things that need to rise up. And long story short, what came about at the end of my research was an image or a story that I called Daughter Goddess. This is a kind of energy I imagined as standing on the shoulders of this ancient tradition that you all know so well. That she is awakening now with a new understanding of relationality, with a whole relational dynamic that needs to permeate everything we do and everything we create. So the characteristics I saw then were interdependence, mutuality, collaboration, and interrelatedness. And that this goddess energy, which is going to create a new voice for the new millennium at that time, and that this was going to be initiated through women's voice who are inheriting this reimagined goddess imagery, moving into a new space. And from that, I developed a number of courses that I taught in college to see the way in which relationship is emerging into our understanding and consciousness, and moving us to connect the dots, as I like to call it, between what we imagine, our values we actually live, and what we're creating in our world that's not just not going to work anymore. And so to help see the ways in which the feminine, which I don't believe belongs only to women, is moving to something new. And in order to see that, to see the ways in which the feminine is co-opted, so that sort of a backwards way of looking at it, you could say, let's see what's not working in our assumptions. It's all at the level of assumptions, which means it's somewhat unconscious, and we can dig it up. Oh, is this what you really want? Is this what you really want? And look at what we're creating. So that's sort of what happened. One of the areas that I was particularly interested in was our understanding of the feminine and the masculine, or the male and the female, causing such rifts between ourselves and our cultures and our relationships and our societies and the whole thing. And one of the people I studied was a woman named Gina Paula Haddon, and she had put out a book called Body Metaphors. And she was talking about the yin yang that we are familiar with, which comes from the Taoist perspective, the yin yang, and that recognizes, the way these energies are together and move together. But one of the things that she noticed was that the way we still talk about masculine and feminine is still the same. In other words, if I were to ask you, and again, you might be the wrong audience to ask, but if I were to ask the 90% of the people out there, what do we mean by feminine? What might be some of those words?
Maybe open it up to our audience, because I don't dare answer.
Okay. If you don't want to play, I'll do it. I'll do it. So typically, I would say we think of the feminine as nurturing, caring, compassionate, right?
Fertile.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Receptive. Okay. And typically, we think of the masculine as
strong and
Dynamic,
and
outgoing.
protector. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for playing. Okay. So the thing is that we're still looking at them, even though we're seeing them as related in the yin yang, we're still looking at them as essentially coming out of the same kind of energy. We're still distinguishing them. So if you were to make a list on a board and put masculine and feminine, you could write those characteristics down. And most people, maybe not you, but most people would still say, yeah, that is pretty much the way it is. And look at our body politic. We don't even have to go there. Okay. What she was saying, though, what I thought was interesting in my search at the time, was that she's saying that women and men have both yin yang energies within their self, and she was a biologist, so she placed it within the body. So basically, it goes something like this: the feminine yin is the qualities that we just named, which we all sort of know about. The masculine yin, basically in our society, as an accepted way to be, doesn't exist. So she said, well, what is this? The masculine is really the phallic. It is the description of what you just said, the powerful and the protective and the exertive and all those great things. However, she's saying that is not the only sexual energy a man has. Man has testicular energy. And what is that? That is creativity, sensitivity, steadfastness, openness, vulnerability. Her point being that is legitimately male, right in your own body, which I felt was really important, because and Paul, you can tell me, or whoever guys are here. I have had this feeling that to claim your quote feminine energy outside of your own experience, your own entity, somehow just wasn't enough. And I felt it the reverse. That I just felt I had to have it somehow. It had to be wholly wholly in me. So now we have a yin yang masculine energy that's thoroughly and legitimately yours, men, and
In
now
its
the
full
feminine
spectrum.
energy. So
Yes.
we have all the yin stuff, which we know everywhere now. Mothers of the world, protectors of everybody, do all the emotional work, blah, 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 blah. Where is the yang? Where is the yang? Now, interesting. Imagine, play. You have to be willing to play with me, people, okay? All
Okay.
right. So imagine you are in labor. You are very close to birth. You are in pain. You are sweating. You are screaming. You are yelling at your husband. You are upset. You are straining to birth this child. You're getting close. You're getting close. You're getting close. You're getting close. And what does the doctor, nurse, whoever say you have to do?
Breathe, relax, push,
No, no,
push,
don't breathe and
push.
relax. Push,
Push, yeah.
push. Every human being that has been born has come through this female feminine power of pushing into life.
I see.
Now, you know, and I know, even now, after all the changes, nobody wants to be called a pushy woman. Here was Gina's way of saying this is how women can claim legitimately in their own body this yang pushing energy that gives birth. Now, here's the other thing about this, and I'll be quiet about it now. The yin energy of both men and women are much more needed on an ongoing basis,
Yeah.
much more needed, like, 23 hours a day or maybe more. The yang energy is really time sensitive.
Okay.
If a woman gives birth and she pushes too soon, this is not good. And if she doesn't push on time, this is not good. There's a way in which things have to be done in the moment. And I would say the truth is the same for men. The phallic energy is time sensitive. It needs to be done at that moment that it needs to be done, and not just anytime you feel like it. So the yin energy is yours in an ongoing way to create a much more peaceable world, I would say. And the yang is energy is right there when you need it, but when you need it, not just when you want to feel like it. So I thought that was an interesting opening onto what we understand as masculine and feminine energies at that
It's
time.
similar to the fight and flight phenomenon, right? We seem to be in fight and flight all the time when nature has just given us that ability in an emergency when we need it. But now that's our default mode for a culture. So similarly, that's really elucidating. Thank you, Bernice.
Yeah, so it has turned into an abuse of power. And the abuse of power has gone both ways, both to women and to men. And one of the weird things about the women's movement, of which I've been greatly involved, is that it sounds like it's about women, but it's better, and it is, but it's also not about women. It's about how we think, it's about how we use our energy, it's about what we create, and it's about how we've created rigid boundaries that are based on power over, as opposed to power with or empowerment.
Because
And
we're
that's the
always in
movement.
relationship to the whole. So
That's right. And that's what we are moving toward.
wow.
Yeah, but about a decade ago, we attended this open celebration up in the Northwest San Juan Islands, and the elder from one of the local tribes came and spoke. And they were doing a special program of traveling around the Northwest with a totem pole, lecturing about what's happening to the environment in the Northwest and how resources are being taken and sent internationally, and how the pollution of the waters. The native peoples stood up and said, what's going on, and why are you not bringing awareness to what's happening to this sacred part of the world? And so when he spoke, he said, it's the women that are standing up and fighting. And he was almost yelling, saying, where are the men? Where are the men? You're supposed to be the
Yes.
warrior. You're supposed to be the protect. You have this role. You should be the environmentalist. No, it shouldn't be only on the shoulders of the women to be the environmentalist. So he was barking in a way that, it really struck me, and I'm still repeating the story to this day, because it was
Right.
the place went silent when he did it. He just said, "Where are the men? We need to."
That's
And
right.
so that kind of ties in with what you're saying, is that there's that
Yeah.
specific role that we've all been assigned to. And also this cultural upbringing where we saw that our mothers were supposed to be in the kitchen and we were supposed to be out working, doing construction or something, or whatever their reality was. But all of a sudden
Right.
that starts to break down. And then, but we had to transition. So women had to get through the guilt of not being their mother, and men have to be through the guilt of not being their father. I mean, I've always told my story of my father being the tough Marine, and I had no relationship to that. I couldn't understand his maleness.
Right.
It was something
Right.
so beyond my
Exactly.
experience. And like that,
Exactly.
yeah.
So what we have had uh, is what I call motherhood has become smotherhood, and fatherhood has become extinct.
Mm,
I
mm,
mean, the place and the importance of father in our lives is monumental,
mm.
and yet because of this distortion that I believe is sort of everywhere around all of this, we haven't imagined ourselves as whole or relational. We've imagined ourselves as separate and in charge, and um, you know, in a dead planet, or a planet that I can do whatever I want to, which is sort of the piece of ecofeminism, if I could say just a couple of words about that.
Sure.
The position is that there is a strong relationship between the treatment or understanding or assumptions around women and the treatment and understanding and assumptions of the earth. But I want to say it's not just women, it's also anything feminine or associated with the feminine is put into this not important. We can do whatever we want. You're here to serve us. I can buy you, I can sell you. It could be people, which we've seen and continue to see. It's the land itself. Everything is what I want. Obviously, if I were to challenge you and say, well, maybe the bottom line is not the most important thing, it's like, what's the matter with you? Of
Right.
course, the bottom
Everything's
line is the most
a
important thing.
commodity nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that Thomas Berry, with his mantra, as I always heard it, said, we are a community of subjects, not a collection of objects.
Right.
Now meditate on that. We are a community, which was a relationship, and I think I got that right. Relationship. We are a community of subjects, not a collection of objects. So, he was one of the people that was introducing the ecozoic age,
Right.
and based on that mantra, if you will, and an early experience that he had when he was like 11 years old. So the the ecofeminist piece is a critique, as feminism is a critique, as I understand it anyway, a critique of our assumptions, of our culture, of our psychology, of our cosmology. It's a critique of
Mhm.
things we don't think about because we take them as the given. That's what assumptions do. They are the given, except sometimes the givens have to be unearthed and looked at and saying, is that really it? Is that and then look at what we're creating in our society and say, well, gee, maybe something's wrong with this. Because so much of the way we humans think is what we create. And then we scratch our head and look at society and go, where did that come from?
It reminds me of Epicurus, who long ago talked about the pillars for a healthy life, a healthy individual, a healthy community. And he said, community, good
Mm.
friends, family, community. He
Right.
said, meaningful work. And he
Yep.
said, an examined life. And I
That's
think
right.
that collectively, this is what we are now coming to grips with,
Mhm.
that we need to give ourselves a new story that helps to support a community. We're all one. We're all one family. In fact, we are the family with the cosmos. The cosmos is our backyard. This is our arena. And that meaningful work means life has meaning. We have meaning. We have a role to
Yes,
play in a meaningful,
absolutely.
purposeful universe. And
That's
that
right.
we need to examine our life by doing the very thing you're saying. Let's tear apart
Right.
basic assumptions,
Right.
re-examine them, and reset them.
And I would say that we are not we are not just participants in the universe. We are the universe.
We're not
the,
bystanders. We're like Bucky
know,
Fuller said, there is no crew. There is nobody but crew on planet Earth.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that's-
you
spaceship.
can look at, you can look at the scientific information and see that we are stardust. I mean, everything we are made of is not separate from everything else. It's the most
And the goddess
amazing,
went through a birthing
amazing
thing to
story.
become stardust.
Ah,
Didn't she?
just
Yeah,
amazing, just amazing.
Mhm.
yeah.
Blow
Yep.
your socks off. 2 weeks ago on 60 Minutes, there was a segment on quantum computing. And we all know that we all got this AI, which I believe this program you're doing has an AI coming up after when you're done and all that other good stuff. This is what they said. I was really taken by it. We have up through now, and even now, been using our technology, which allows us to be here together today, with transistors. Transistors, Brian can straighten me out here if I got this wrong. Our transistors go on and off, on and off. That's it. That's your choice.
Zero.
On and off.
Mhm.
Now, what's happening in the quantum world is a recognition that we live within and among a womb of infinite possibilities.
Mhm.
So he showed on this program, look, on and off, that's what you can do, on and off. And then he showed that this other little demonstration of this qubits of electrons. And if you were one little old electron all by yourself, which doesn't really happen, you got to go do all the work by yourself with one little on and off, on and off turn everywhere you go. However, the qubits, what do? They go everywhere on the screen simultaneously, all the options, all of the possibilities, and everything in between. I suggest you look it up. 60 Minutes 2 weeks ago,
Oh, I am going to.
July 28th. It was fascinating to me. So what I did with all of that, because I know nothing about computers, it struck me as that another example of how we are moving into a whole era of creativity that is fluid, that is moving, that is changing, that we are indeed, imagine that you live within a realm, a field of infinite possibilities. I mean, like,
Literally.
let yourself believe that for like 10 consecutive seconds. This alleviates, so much of our anxieties, of our sense of alienation. I think Paul mentioned earlier, our isolation. I was intrigued by thinking about that realm of possibilities of not being either or on and off, or male or female, or black or white, to get us out of the or world. We are moving from an either or to a both
All of
and
the above.
world. Everything, both and. So our thinking has to move. Sounds like the tiny little thing. How can one little word cause all this trouble? Move from either or to both and. And I invite you to think about that, about everything. And what I see happening, of course, the whole racial issue in this country, what is it? It's about embracing more than the rigid either or we have in our head. It's about embracing the more, the possibility of more, embracing it toward the whole. And our sexism is the same, same idea here. And I think it's the LGBTQ community that's pushing on this, because what they have done is they have placed before us the trans world. And we have, now that it's in our face, we have to look at it. That's what evolution does, it raises up stuff that we now have to look at. And it's saying to us, like, we don't have to be either or, we don't have to be binary. Why do we have to be binary if we live in the world of infinite possibility? So I take Gina's notion of her yin yang thing, and I wanted to move it out in my own thinking and say, imagine if there is a pole on one end of the universe that's feminine, and then pole on the other end of the universe that's masculine. And imagine that every little thing in between, every little whatever that would be, qubit, every little thing in between could be whatever the variety of possibilities would be between our masculine and feminine selves. But the only things that don't exist is the pole of masculine or the pole of feminine, because we need each other. Those don't actually exist. We exist in relationship. So I liked that. I liked that whole thing about turning this on and off and this possibility of movement into everything simultaneously spontaneous.
Well, I would say that's why I love and I really celebrate when our culture and film is one of those delivery systems. But the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once really
Yeah,
describes
yeah,
that kind of universe because
yeah.
that's what's emerging. And I really believe that scientists, and we've talked to neurologists who say, we know less than nothing about how our mind works, but I think it works on this principle. The universe has created and perfected this long ago. We're just slowly catching up. So if you want to describe that, we're living that. We're living the everything everywhere all at once. And
Right.
maybe we put
And
our
we're moving
blinders
into
on
that.
to focus on this moment and this reality,
Mm.
but
Right.
we're now grokking that our reality is like all of that. We
That's right.
are the universe. The universe is that, and
Right.
that's who we truly are. And
Yeah.
I was just going to say that too many people that I have run into are now doom and gloom. This is their outlook for the hope for the future. Doom and gloom, and they're already mourning and grieving our passing or Mother Earth's passing or whatever. And I'm like, why don't you just grieve the passing of an old story, of an old era, and start to build the new one?
Maybe.
Like the regenerative power of the goddess of the universe, of the cosmos, of yourself. Do you not see that? So build upon what is here. Just build it and stop mourning. So anyway, I love what you're saying, Bernice.
Well,
Thank you.
and it kind of comes
And
back
your
to,
script. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, it comes
ahead.
back to what we were talking about
That's fine.
earlier too, and is that we have a worldview in this conversation and in this community that sees, it makes it so clear to us, but we're such a slice of what's going on, even though that slice is changing. If you
Is it
watch
not our duty then to
mainstream media, the polarization has never been so extreme, and the separation between us in every possible way has never been so extreme. So there's two things happening at once. There's what we're talking about today, and fortunately using the terminology of the goddess to understand it. But there's also this outer world of struggle and separation and divisiveness that's going on, and so this is an interesting time for this to come about and see.
It is our duty not to help to try to move the dial through dialogue as one means.
Right.
Direct experience as
Can
an
I say something about that, Paul?
Yeah, please do.
According to Teilhard,
Yeah.
and the way in which we evolve is that something becomes, well, just an example. Imagine that you have oxygen, and now you have a second oxygen. Here's two oxygens,
Mhm.
okay? They are attracted to each other. They call it in the new story allurement, which is the basis of love. They are attracted to each other. Now, what happens is these are not two oxygens. They have transformed. This is now helium. This is now something totally new. So, in relation to what we were just saying, if this is how evolution works, and it works by bringing things together and they bang into each other, which is what we're doing socially, we're clearly banging into each other.
Yeah.
But what that requires is that we have to look at it. So now all the things I didn't want to look at, let's just say white supremacy, for example, now it's like sitting right here in my face. So now I got to look at it. So the disruption that's happening is stirring our unconscious and our consciousness and
Yes.
requiring that we become more conscious, more attentive, more responsible for our choices. That ultimately will bring a whole level or different way of being. It's not going to happen outside of the conflict, whether it's within it. It is the
Right.
possibility within it. So I wouldn't.
So jump
It's
into
not
the
like
cauldron,
those
but
are all they're all fighting it. They're not. We're all participating in this in our own way in which we are engaged.
Yeah.
And all of it is necessary. And all of it is exactly as it needs to be. And all of it is moving and changing. And yes, it is life-threatening.
Mm.
It is exactly life-threatening. But being born is life-threatening too.
what I hear you saying is that we now are being forced just like the hero journey shoves you out on the path that you need to be to find your destiny.
Just-
We are being forced to jump into the cauldron and find those qualities of this goddess. Relationality, interdependence, mutuality, collaboration, interrelatedness. She's giving us the very skills and qualities we need to transmute this into the world we
right.
all want to live in, into
right.
reaching the next stage of our evolution.
Right.
So I agree
But
with you.
before,
There are
the
forces.
hero's journey was like one person. Now it's the
It's the
collective.
collective hero
It's
journey.
the collective. We
Yeah.
are not doing this by ourselves. We are doing this together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you. This was great fun.
Well, hey, Brian's going to be our first comment. I just wanted to also, of course, just keeping terminology and the reality straight that there's a significant movement also to the sacred masculine, and the sacred masculine playing the proper role to work in divine cooperation with the divine
dance
feminine,
the
to dance the dance correctly.
Yeah.
That needs to happen as well.
Partnership.
So we're not dismissing that. We're not dismissing masculinity. We're saying that it has to continue to evolve to that state of sacredness as well, side by side, to hold the
It's
space.
absolutely essential. It's
Yeah.
absolutely essential. It's not going to happen without it. It's essential.
Yeah.
There's no extras, like we don't have an extra eyeball or we don't have an extra kidney, it's essential.
It's essential. Speaking of
That's
it,
the interdependence. We have so many people here that we need to talk to. We need to talk to Monica,
and
DeBras Poles, Sister Margaret, we want to talk to. Who else? Oh,
Brian,
she is here. Okay.
and
So
Brian,
many people.
yeah,
Yeah.
is talking about being essential. Brian is here.
Well, there's so many wonderful threads to pick up upon, Bernice. I wondered if I might quote from your book, The Created in Her Image. I have 4 lines that I think relate to this aspect of change making and possibly pick up on a theme that our community is interested in, Felicitas, in her work in the alternate realm. But in this quote, it's in the introduction, really. So it says, for unless we are willing to go out and co-create with her, the feminine divine, there will never be a new world. Others have responded with ideas, prayers, and vision, and that is also part of the response. For if we do not have the image of the new world before us, we will not have the power to bring it into being. Ultimately, the active and contemplative are merely the mirror images of unity, for the vision empowers the action, while the action enables the vision, both to become a reality and to evolve. And so that gives me a sense about what it means, your last statement about us coming together in the spirit of change making and letting this energy we name the divine feminine lead the way. Earlier, Laura Lee, you mentioned the Whidbey Island, and was it Paul Wegner Chiaktan, the indigenous leader, who said there was no word for hope in their language, but it's rather prayer. So I wonder if you could kind of speak about the vision that's being offered. There's a vision right now of the rising energy of the feminine. It's championed by so many cultures worldwide. And I just found it to be a very compelling part of your book.
Championed, whether they identify it as goddess or not, those qualities are just emerging and being validated as needed for the healing.
Right.
Bernice?
Right. So that's an interesting thing you both mentioned, and thank you, Brian. Is these energies are it's like imagine that you walk into a room and there's fragrance, and you walk into the room and there's a fragrance. Is that fragrance in like the corner over there? Where is the fragrance? It's everywhere. You walk into the room and there's the fragrance. So she's like that. It permeates everything. And there's a presence, And I personally believe that we human beings need to articulate her energy and her presence in in humanity as clearly, and I don't mean definitively, but as clearly and as openly as possible, because we don't know what we're talking about because we haven't touched her in thousands of years. So we need to bring her up. And then once she's up, then maybe we won't need to be naming these things in these ways. I don't know. But there's a whole new mythology that will be emerging from that. I am strongly convinced that unless we do that, we're going to miss the boat.
Well,
So the vision is movement. The psyche is stimulating us. The energies are stimulating us. All the stuff that's happening in the world, actually, on both sides, if you want to call it that, are stimulating our movement to another place. It's a leap of consciousness.
Oh.
It's not just a paradigm shift. It's a leap of
of
consciousness.
consciousness.
Let's see if I can remember the example. As I don't remember the numbers, but Brian Swim tells the story of the fish. The fish. I don't know how many millions of years ago, whatever it was. Somebody else can please look it up. The fish lived in water. I think we know that part, right? And the fish had gills, right? And for some crazy, absolutely insane, probably catastrophic reason, fish decided to leave the water. Are they crazy? Yes, they left the water, and it took them millions of years and umpteen deaths. But guess what? They created lungs.
Mm-hmm.
That's a leap of consciousness. A whole new genre of life was able to emerge from that. This is what we're about. We are creating a transmutation, not just a transformation, a transmutation.
Wow.
We've never done this before as humans.
Yeah. Oh,
Great. Thank
This is
you.
big
Thank
time.
you. Yeah. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
you're welcome, Brian. Did that make sense, Brian?
Yes, it
Yep.
did. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you,
that's
Brian.
so appropriate that you would bring that up, that would be the key pivotal insight here. Because yesterday when you joined us for one of our ritual postures, it was a transmutation posture. It was a shape-shifting posture. Was it that? And I was like, Paul, should we do a goddess posture? Because we've got Bernice. He goes, nope, this is the one I need to do. And here it is.
Yeah.
And we had such a, yeah,
Well,
Good for
it's-
you, Paul.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of
And so here you are. That was
Brian
so
Swim,
meaningful. Yeah.
speaking of Brian Swim,
Oh.
co-author Monica Durras Bowles is here. They're coming up with a new
Oh,
publication.
wonderful. Is she here?
Yes, she.
Ah, hello. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Hi.
Pleasure to meet you virtually.
Bernice, I'm so glad to meet you. I've seen your name so many times, and listening to you here, I feel like I just want to capture you a little bit, like just have you right here, and we could just have this conversation that would go on and on forever.
Put it
Because
on.
I am
I'm
so alive.
game. I'm
Yes,
game. Let's do
okay.
it.
Yeah, I will do it. I want it,
All right.
So I love that you are just so you touch on the sciences, you touch on all the good stuff, and I feel that it's really deep in you. And just to take the one thing that you said when you're describing this leap in consciousness, I too think a lot about that. So and there's another way of tying it into all the breadth of things that you've talked about, because you've talked about this post-axial time. And in that axial age, we differentiated. You asked where God is, that's when we decided that God was transcendent and out there and not immanent in this world. We set up all these distinctions, and that is the way that our consciousness works, and that was called a leap in being by Eric Voegelin. That leap in being that it is where man became what man as we know him today is. And I too feel that there's something new emerging, which I like to think as time developmental consciousness, or a leap in becoming, where we recognize that interrelationality, that the becoming is it's not just the abstract notion of the on, off of external relations, but rather the recognition of that what's real is not just physicality, of external relations, but and then later they separated it into mind and matter, because we started to notice that the mind, wait a minute, it's not just stuff, there's something going on here. And then in quantum physics, we also noticed that, because the effect was so real. But out here in the midst of all this matter, we don't notice it. But so what's real is not just physicality, but a potential. So, and all of physicality has this inherent potency in it, just like pre-axial times understood. Yeah. So if we then, only then, when we're in relationship to the whole of things, which includes that potency, can we begin to feel ourselves as manifesting that great potency and actually participants in this great becoming. I don't know, I've gone on too much, but I love all the developments that, ways that you've developed to think to how to speak about this in terms of the feminine, in terms of yin and yang, and in ways of talking to people, and
making it so
being a teacher, and making it in a teacher, and I would love to talk to you about Bohm and why he's wrong and all kinds of things.
All right.
Sure. Let's have a panel discussion where we just go at it to further pull the threads apart and reweave ourselves into this. So I invite you all back here. Yeah.
Can I respond to something then?
Yeah.
All of it, please.
I just want to I want to say that because we are moving toward wholeness and this interrelated kind of thing, does not mean that we're not going to be making a choice of this or that. In other words, we're not going to stop thinking. This is not going to, like, we're going to leave cognitive thinking behind. We're taking it with us.
Right.
We take everything with us. We take the ancient goddess tradition with us. We take our cognitive abilities, our wonderful cognitive abilities with us. There are no extra things to kind of like get rid of. Jean Gebser talks a bit about the development of consciousness, and one of the things I like about what he says is that in the other models that we have had, we think of consciousness as developmental, like I graduate from 3rd grade to 5th grade or whatever, and I leave 3rd grade behind. And he's saying, no, consciousness isn't doing that. We take it all with us and we build. So they're states of being. So we're not going to like leave behind what we've already learned. We need all of it. The answer is all of the above, all of it.
Yeah. When, there's a time where we didn't have a reproductive imagination. We had to go into the caves and develop that by drawing bison on the walls.
Right.
And now we have a reproductive imagination, and it's not gone just because we develop new forms.
Right.
Yeah.
But also your whole story is that we are all of the universe. So we are all of that 13.8 billion years evolution. So the universe itself builds on itself.
Right.
So do we. So we follow trap. Universe invented or created how we are. We're just following in her footsteps. So yeah, of course, we're all of that in our own history, collectively, individually. So
well, right now on planet Earth, I'll be interested, Monica. Right now, I think that on planet Earth, the human being is the decisive species. Not ultimately, not at all ultimately, but so much of what we do has such massive impact on the planet, earth, air, fire, water, on all of the basic systems. And we know about all of the destruction, the socio-economic, political, ecological destructions. And they're all very dangerous. And they're depending on what we do. So our leap of consciousness, and I would say I agree with this, is really based on our willingness to love. Are we willing to learn how to love more than we have loved in the past, differently? In other words, we know how to love the people we love. This is good. This is really good. And some of our relationships, but are we as humans being willing to love what we've considered the other? And be that the trees or whales or broccoli or the neighbor down the street or impoverished kids wherever.
Mm.
That
And
is
this
a
is the
huge
goddess
challenge.
again, loving all of her children,
Yeah.
nurturing all of her.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, thank you.
Well, for Teilhard, it was learning to see. So
Yes.
so to be able to see the interrelationality, the interconnectedness, the ways in which the two oxygen come together and make the helium, you
Right.
know, come together with what you perceive as the other, and you find the connections, and then you each become more of what it is that you
Exactly.
are in your
Exactly.
differentiation. So unity differentiates, and
Exactly.
and then in these new levels hold steady for further complexification. So yeah, in love is the physical fabric of the
Right.
universe, Teilhard,
That's right. That's right.
And that
Yeah.
really brings up a
Teilhard said, I have a little quote here. Teilhard is the most universal, most formidable, and most mysterious of cosmic energies, the very bloodstream of spiritual evolution.
Mm.
Yeah.
There you go.
And coming back to that very idea of
Thank
spiritual
you.
evolution,
All right.
Thank
spiritual
you.
evolution.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Monica.
Jump back on if you have more. I
Yeah.
was going to say, following up on that concept, it also comes out, which is what, Dr. Goodman's work was about too. And that is there has to be a shift in consciousness. There has to be something some type of a practice. You talked about with your goddess work that there was some drumming and some other activities and rituals, tons of rituals surround the goddess movement. And like that, there's a reason and power behind ritual itself that in order for us to make a shift, it can't just be an intellectual conversation. It can't just be like, okay, now I agree to be a loving person. Yeah, right. Good luck with that. Love doesn't come from the intellect. And so how do we shift from the outer experience of disconnection and not caring and hatred and all of those functions back to just that centeredness of living a life of love? And it has to happen on the level of consciousness. There has to be some sort of practice and practices around the world where human beings can reconnect themselves to that deeper meaning, the more profound level of what love is and what life is.
Well, she said without ritual, without inviting the quote spirits in or whatever that is, that source is,
Goodman said
there is
this.
no transformation. And so that is being in community with the all.
Mm.
Ritual for us is about being in direct community with the cosmos,
Mm.
with the
And there's
mother
a lot of
goddess, with it all.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
and there's a lot of personal work that we need to do.
Right.
You know, and I think that's what you're pointing to, if I understood, Paul. There's
Yes.
a lot of personal work. You
Examine.
know, it's easy for me to say that you're wrong. You know, obviously you're wrong. I'm right. That's the end of that. It's easy to do that, but it's very hard to really see yourself and come to terms with what some people have called the lower self, what people have called the shadow. There's a lot of psychological healing, actually, because we develop all these things as defenses as children, etc. I mean, psychology is very important here, our psyche and understanding ourselves. It's because what we have here is what we create out there. So there's so that cultivation, it can be done through, I think it could be done through body work, because your thing is your body knows the truth. This is the thing I liked about the body work I did. Your body knows the truth. Our head makes up all kinds of nonsense, but our body knows. Our body knows immediately what's going on.
It's a
So
landscape that is going to show exactly what it's holding.
exactly what it is, and it's not going to make it up. It's going to, you like it or not, that's what it's going to be.
Embodied
And
spirituality.
so a lot of work that would involve body and consciousness. So really having creating ways of releasing some of the energies that we hold on and our bodies hold on.
Mm.
Yoga would be very good for that, but done spiritually, not just sort of done in the gym. I mean,
Right.
yoga is a gigantic gift of the Hindu tradition.
Right.
not a gym class, you know.
It's not a gym class.
It's becoming
And
that.
also all kinds of meditation processes
Yes.
and psychotherapy and journaling and deep conversation, learning skills like deep listening,
Mm.
and recognizing that when you're talking, half the time I'm already thinking of an answer, or I'm thinking about what I have to do when I, get up tomorrow. We have very little, awareness sometimes of what we're about.
So true.
Buddhism is very practical and very helpful.
Mm.
And going deeper.
We
So
need all of these tools in our
that's it. You see,
toolkit.
it's all simultaneously all the time,
But there's a choice
individual
individually that
like
we have to make.
collective.
Yeah.
Everything all at once, all the time. That's it.
So much potential.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
So
mentioned,
go ahead.
well, you mentioned Sister Margaret.
Yeah,
Sister
but
Margaret,
Margaret
do you have a question or comment? Laura kind of automatically assumes you do.
Sister Margaret is a fascinating woman and member of our community for decades. She's a Catholic nun that has done service in South America and also has done ritual postures and New Felicitas for 20 years. So
Wonderful.
I'm sure you
Well,
have
lovely
something
to
to
meet
say on
you.
all of this because I know you've studied the goddess as well, Sister Margaret.
Well, yes. Oh, I just love your presentation, Bernice, and
Thank you.
so many things I would just keep saying yes, 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 yes. And I think the way to get to this new level of consciousness is exactly what the Cuyamonga Institute is about. Because we have to get out of the linear logical thinking and embrace the unconscious. That's where it's going to come from. My other thought was to try to figure out how to introduce some of this in maybe a different way, depending on your connections. I get asked sometimes to do a presentation to parents for children that are making their first communion or confirmation. So I try to raise questions in their minds. I'm already been disinvited to 2 parishes. But I keep at it anytime I get the chance. And I figure I sow the seeds, and then it's up to them what they can do about it. And I also agree with you 100%, of course, that biology is the way to explain a whole lot of this.
Right.
And
Yeah.
She speaks as a biologist.
Oh, yes, the biologist.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thought I had when Laura Lee mentioned pieces of the puzzle, I think history is a big piece of the puzzle too.
Mhm.
Our Conspirando group in Chile, we did loads of workshops on creation myths.
Yes.
And if you read the Enuma Elish, you really understand how the divine feminine got lost and
Yes.
the sky god got
Right.
imposed, and we've been
Right.
with that for pretty
Long
much
time.
all this time.
Yeah.
And my other question would be, do you think it's a problem to image the divine as a person?
Ooh.
That's a really core question. I'm so glad you raised it. And of course, I don't have the answer, but I could say this. I think we moved through, we have, if whatever God is inexplicable and ineffable, then all of our attempts to be able to find language to talk about this numinosity is helpful, knowing that none of it is it, you know. Um, Personal, it's interesting. I'd have to say, personally, I would have to say yes. I have a very strong philosophical bent in my own way of approaching life and thinking about things and such. But there's an intimacy to love. There is a relationality that is more than the concept, or more than the, I'm a concept person. I love concepts, but that I believe that I believe the answer is yes, at least for some of us. I think that kind of dynamic brings in a whole other level, a whole other way to be in a in relationship with, and that's part of what we seek. And if God is not somewhere else or somebody else, then it's all here. And where do we what could I say? It's our engagement with each other on some level that brings us more and more into how I choose to live my life, how I choose to be with you, how I choose to be with other people. And I think that's all a part of this divine manifestation. I'd be curious, what do you think?
Well, I think, I think as long as we realize that we've created the image, it's probably okay.
It helps us have personal relationships with all of this.
Sometimes.
If I'm hurting and I crawl up on God's lap, that's okay. But that's not who God is.
Right. So I think by self-definition, God is inexplicable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or John got it right.
God
is
well.
love.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Sister Margaret.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well,
Can I just say something about that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, jump in.
If our sense of what of God is back at that level of matter, mothering, incarnation, relationality, creativity. So the deep sense of that creative opening that is in the potency that is somehow bonded and made real and connected to whole, which is present in every moment, then that is a personal relationship with the depth of what some people would name God, and some people would, that is personal. It's deeply personal. It doesn't even exist without me, to do it. So it's a personal relationship.
We got to add Brian Tucker back into this, because let's just have a panel discussion for a moment. But Brian, you speak a lot about archetypes, and archetypes aren't the whole, it's an aspect of. And so this is just a way for us to relate, knowing that it's one facet of a much bigger field. Yeah.
Yeah, one way I understand archetypes, it's an energetic quality which comes alive in the world, and it comes alive in us. It's out in the world, it's within us as well. It's interesting if we to invite a larger religious perspective. Someone from the Hindu tradition might say they need God immanent, and they worship God in the form of a murti, or a persona, but God can take on infinite personas. So there's a fluidity. There's a way to worship God in the immanent. There's a way to worship God in the unknowable. That's also common within the Jewish tradition, and throughout world religions. Islam as well would probably say the objective representation God is not to be encouraged. So I'm just reminded there are so many ways, and thankfully this is kind of opening up a new avenue. Your talk and this idea, the archetypes come alive in each of us. They call us forth in unique ways. They've operated in my life, and I've witnessed that as well. So yes.
The rest of us would say that spirit, source, matrix, field, the collective all, whatever you want to call it, so many names, that it wears many masks in order to relate to us personally. in
Mhm.
order for us to understand and help deepen that personal relationship. But it can wear whatever masks that we cannot behold it all in its enormity all at once.
Right.
So vast.
Yeah.
But we can relate to these various aspects of it and
Mm.
represent it. So
I also think the inexplicability, if you will, or the numinosity, touches on that part of ourselves, which is profound mystery. That we come from this place of profound mystery, and we can access um, around it. We can know that it is in the air. It is in that at that level, you know, we can we're not looking for an explanation, like you're going to,
not,
you
we're
know,
not going to
define something here. Yeah. But there is that place of utter mystery. And when we look out at the cosmos and you look out at you know, the Webb telescope,
Right.
which had, you know, it's like, oh my God. I mean, it's what people say. And it's awesome and beautiful and inexplicable and amazing.
Yeah.
And I think there's that place in us that that is with a capital M, you know, this profound mystery of
Yeah.
of existence, of being.
Yeah. And we can enjoy it
The,
in all of its various attributes.
the
And I appreciate that it comes to us and shows us what it wants us to see. We're on the cosmic curriculum, we're on the cosmic clock, and it's about, to me, being open to whatever it wants to show me at its time. I trust it placing me through its paces. And I trust the curriculum that I'm shown and how it's
and the James,
unfolding. Yeah.
the James Webb Telescope's the ultimate reality TV.
Oh,
So
good one.
if you're addicted to reality TV, make sure you add
This inner
NASA
screen.
channel to your
Yeah.
subscriptions. Yeah.
Yeah. So many views, so many views. And can we get glimpses? Can we momentarily open up our bandwidth to imbibe? Yeah. Thank
Monica,
you.
were you going to say
The
something?
story,
Just that in some sense, you know, the archetypes are transcendent, fundamentally transcendent, where we imagine, you know, in a Platonic sense, you know, that the idea or the archetype is more whole, more real than what is existing in deep within the relationships that are developing in this irreversible world.
Mhm.
But really, the archetypes are concepts, and what is more real is what is developing here in the time-soaked world.
Mhm.
And that's what's real. So, and that's where we access the archetypes, the concepts, you know, but the creativity is right here. What's more fundamental. This is the idea that is less prevalent today, you know, because we're operating in a post-axial mindset. So the idea that's less prevalent is that what's real is this quantum of potency right here, you know, coming through us with all the decisions that we make. That's more real
Mhm.
than. And so archetypes are helpful, but you
Not the
know,
whole picture. Yeah.
yeah, and also they are preeminent. You know, that's how we see things with our axial mind, our theoretic mind. We believe we have access to this deeper realm, access that the
we talk
forest doesn't have, access that, you know, women often don't have. It's just you know, the external, those that are able to discern external relationships to this transcendent world, they have access, and everything else is secondary to
So when we talk about a leap of consciousness, as you mentioned, Bernice, that's really about a leap of how are we thinking, our worldview, how are we structuring it? How do we perceive the universe? How do we perceive, how does our mind work? I mean, there's new neural pathways we're developing here. that's going to be necessary
Yes.
to grok
Right.
this in a whole new
Right.
way. I want to invite Tyler Volk. He gave us such a beautiful discourse on how the building blocks of new relations now evolve to the next step, and now there's new relations, and things are building and building and building to maintain all of the structure is necessary. But really, he's looking at nature's patterns and complexity and this evolution. So I think nature's got it built in how we're evolving, and we're just going along for the ride, I would
Uh,
think.
Well, I
Right.
would say we're a little bit more than going along for the ride, but I would say that it's taken what 14, almost 14 billion years. This is one of the story, taken 14 billion years for a life form on planet Earth to be able to reflect back what's happening, to be able to provide consciousness and some form of of experience. And there's a dance, I would say,
Hmm.
between whatever of the creative inner energies that are always going forth and always creating. And if we imagine ourselves as having some, uh, I'll use the term free will, we make choices. We
Hmm.
make choices, and the choice to move into a greater consciousness, to perceive differently, is ours.
Yeah.
I don't mean passively along for the ride, but I do want to ask you about people like Ray Kurzweil and his transhumanist movement, and where he would probably agree with a lot of this, but say we're going to do it by using technology and merging with technology and using really the patriarchal values. Hey, who's got the most money in the end wins, because they'll be able to purchase the enhancements that we think that we should be able to create. Forget the rest of the impact on the collective society. We're really going to do this in a techno-determinism way. I mean, where does this sit? Maybe it's the same spark, but the way that it's going about it, to me, just leaves me cold.
So we live in a universe of infinite possibilities. That's one of them.
Okay, which path are we going to follow?
Well, you got a
Yeah.
choice.
That's up to us.
Follow the
That's our
yellow brick
choice.
road.
Yeah.
We have to create it. We have to create
Yeah.
it.
Could I also add, I do have a strong feeling that technology will begin to serve the ecozoic, or the era where life thrives. And there's some really interesting movements. There's something called the life-centered design movement, that seeks to center the design effort of many products, of many ways we interact with the world from a life perspective. It's evolved out of the human-centered perspective. So I think a technology can serve the world. It's just a matter of our conscious,
I'm
as
not
you say, Bernice, free choice.
anti-technology. I agree with you. It's how do we use it? It's a
How do we
neutral
use it?
force. How are we going to use it? Livingry versus weaponry,
Yeah.
right? How are we going to use it?
Right.
Yeah.
And the whole creation of what's referred to as the noosphere, and it's the same kind of question. We all of our human knowledge sort of coming together, and this is an enormous, magnificent thing. But do we not, to have some parameters of ethics and choices, and who's going to do that, and where are the values going to, where are we going to get these values, and these values that are in us. We have to find vehicles and ways of communicating, collaborating together, to be able to allow these values to have their rightful place in this conversation, because I don't know about you, but uh, I don't really want this machine deciding what I'm doing. Now, if the machine
Well, aren't
develops
we in partnership
consciousness,
with Mother Earth already? Because our technology, our sheer population numbers have had such an impact. We're already a partner with Mother Earth in
oh
determining
yeah,
that. And
oh yeah,
so when we go to her and turn to her in this goddess principle, that's where we might have the vision and the power and the mindset and the
right.
potential.
I personally feel that there is a spirituality here that needs to be integral to this whole process.
Right.
Not necessarily religion or religious, and that's okay too. But that needs to be updated quite a bit. But I believe that that whole part of us, that is the spiritual source or resource or whatever, goddess energy, this creative energy that recognizes sacred, that recognizes profound mystery, that recognizes um, intimacy and vulnerability and caring and compassion, has to be in this mix.
Yeah.
Has to be in this mix.
Yeah. Thank you. Who else
Well-
wants to say something? Raise your hand.
Thank
We
you.
have-
Sister Margaret, did you have a final comment? Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, obviously, traditional religions have provided a foundation of ethics and, way to conduct one's life. There was a role that was played. Unfortunately, it's kind of dissolved over time somewhat, and how its impact is there. But maybe that's where, like you're saying to us, Bernice, is that from that inner spirituality, that code of ethics comes from within, and that more and more that becomes the guiding post, is through direct experience and not necessarily relying on outside agency to provide the guidance. So, but
Oh, maybe it's time, as you're pointing out, Bernice, that we have free will, and we are these agents of change. One way or the other, we're changing the world,
yeah,
and we need to step up and take a voice and take all of us take a hand on the steering wheel
yeah,
Yeah,
collectively.
I'm kind of interested in the power of intention.
mm,
And
Yeah.
I don't know that we've scratched the surface much on that.
no,
What is the power of intention?
mhm,
And I like to sort of play with connect the dots. um, I don't know what be political here, but just to notice the energies. So in what year was it? God help us, 2016 was it? When there was the Women's March, called the Women's March, which had many men in the Women's March
sure,
all over the world. And there was a statement. And I remember some people saying, well, this is really great. This is wonderful. It was empowering, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't change what was out there. And you got to give it a little time, because it moves. It moves in a different kind of way and there has been change. Now look what happened. What is it, a month ago, when there was apparently a whole mess of compressed energy around an anxiety of a political possibility for this country for many people. And they were sitting on it because they couldn't do anything about it, but they had, I would say, intention. I had intention anyway. And I don't mean a political intention. I mean, I had an intention of 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 creating a viable future. Is this part of this? And how can we does this need to, do we need to implode more, or don't? I don't know, but I want to be present. I want to be witness. I want to contribute. So, and then what happens? The lid comes off because of an amazing gift of a person to offer. Really, it's a whole other story. And this energy goes
Mhm.
to the social public square.
mhm,
Mhm.
It's amazing. And I don't know what's going to happen, of course. I'm not predicting the future. I'm just saying, just look at what happens to the energy. And I would say it goes back to 2016, to that energy that's been, poking
Yeah.
around, been smoldering, been, like a serpent, all around, all around, all around,
Oh.
all around.
no
Mm.
question. The power of intention, like you say, scratching the surface. And there's probably so many examples throughout history that a small group of people with intention move mountains. And so, yeah, we can't forget
I
that
think it's a
power.
dialogue we can have now. We're
Yeah.
all connected,
I know.
and we're realizing that we have the technology to help connect us.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
amplified.
All right.
What remains to be said here?
Well, Monica, did you have one final comment before I start clicking people off?
Well, I was just going to say that the time, it was just like you said, it's time sensitive. That I would say that not just the yang energy, but everything is really time sensitive regarding intentions, and that and it, um, and that in the tension, in the tensions that we feel, that just getting all bottled up like that and everything, is where, if we pay attention, if that's where we can feel the intention of the whole universe to move towards greater beauty. It's ultimate. It's ultimate. I do believe in an ultimate telos of some kind, and so I feel that in the tensions that we feel, that's where we're being asked to elaborate our own intention. And if we don't pay attention, if we don't pay attention to that, there's no place that the universe can get to us with with the more ultimate meaning of things, because we're just part. So it has to be where we feel that. But I just wanted to add that.
That's beautiful.
Thank you,
That
Monica.
tension, that power accumulating, potentiality accumulating before it bursts forth. Right. Yeah.
So we
And I think one of the spiritual practices is how to hold I think part of what Monica was saying, we have to learn how to hold the tension, hold it.
Yes.
Just be there. Just be there. Don't have to mess it up. You don't have to. Just stay present. Stay present.
Like you
It's
said,
hard.
look at it. It's before your face. Don't walk away. Stay with the trouble. That's what Donna Haraway said. Staying with the trouble.
Yeah.
And let it mature, right? Which is what a womb does, incubating a baby till it's ready to burst forth. Or I like the principle of punctuated equilibrium in the geological sense, in the evolutionary sense. It's also happening here, pacing us, isn't it? In a cultural sense. So, yeah.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. So good to see you again, Monica.
Thank you, Bernice.
Got to hang out with Monica.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Then Monica has that beautiful home. She's doing Monica on the move today with her mobile phone. Thank you, Monica.
I'm trying to get my coffee machine to work. Without my coffee.
I'll be right over. Brian, final comments.
I'm just going to add one thing because of our love for Teilhard, but the notion of harnessing the power of love here and how that can become the rediscovery of fire. I wonder, to the extent that you talk, Bernice, about the power of intention and how we collectively, something has been unleashed right now. It's not going back. It's coming forward. And to the extent that it can be harnessed for the power of love, I think we will see this rapid transformation. But I don't expect it out there in the world. I expect it first within. And so that's why I love this work, the Cuyamonga. It's a way of working within to change the world. So it's partnering, with both realms. Thank you, Bernice, for your insights today.
Thank you, Brian, as always. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you for the introduction.
I want to mention Randy Morris, who we also met at the New Cosmic Story Woodward Institute with Monica. Randy Morris, who joined us a couple weeks ago. And he said something just delightful. When we talked, we titled this talk with him, The Dark Night of Our Collective Soul. Right? This collective hero journey that we're on. We're facing the dark night collectively. Yeah. And he said, it's when you have these opposing forces come together, like you're describing. Let's sit with this, not run away from it. Let's sit with it. Right. And he said, that's where this third new element can emerge.
Exactly.
Not one side winning over the other, but it's really the coming together to transmute into some new element. And I think that's we have a stage set for that now. Where it is going to propel us of our evolutionary leap. And we talked about how, well, you do have order and chaos, those dynamic forces. You have left, you have right. In our binary structure here, you've got these opposing forces creating this tension Monica just talked about. And it's like how we walk. One foot rests while the other's moving forward. That rests while that. You've got to have the two to dance. You got to have those, so they're valuable. They're useful here. I didn't.
Absolutely.
None of us know the way the universe works. So let's work with it and help propel ourselves across the abyss that we face, and the safe landing, we hope, where we can begin a new cycle. We can begin an evolutionary.
It takes what I call courageous faith. And I'm not speaking of faith as doctrine of anything. I'm speaking about, are you willing to believe in what doesn't look too likely some days? Are you willing, can you, from your heart, not just, not your head, because your head's going to say, that's the most unreasonable thing you've ever thought of, but from your heart and even from your gut, from your body, are you willing to believe? And it's courageous in the face of what our possibilities are on all sides. It is an act of courageous faith, in my opinion, to keep on leaning toward that, keep on putting your energies toward that by way of intention. It's not necessarily that you have to go around. Well, some people do. I'm at a stage of life where I'm not going to be running around as much, but the intention behind it. This is what I'm putting my energy toward. That makes it's all about energy, right? Ultimately here. So that's what that makes a difference.
Wow.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
If my sister Kim is here, and I just want to also give her a voice real quick, because there's two things that she's doing that we, Paul and I, celebrate. So Kim, if you want to turn on your mic or whatever, we'd love to. I just want to acknowledge the simple things that we can do. First of all, when you come to hug my sister, she'll go, no, 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 left side, heart to heart. No, let's see. Yeah, she
Yeah.
wants you, here's my left. She wants you to hug heart to heart. And I thought, you don't even know about heart math, but they're saying the heart and its energetics are so powerful. So aligning two hearts in this simple of how you hug one another is so important. And let's put Kim on the spotlight. She's starting a wise woman compound in her home. I thought, yes, we all need to do that. Wise men, wise women, wise beings, wise trans, whatever you are. Let's start collectively having those conversations in our own community and carrying them on each to the other. There she is. Hello, Kim. Do you want to add? I just wanted to
Just got
celebrate.
out of bed a while ago. Yes, the Wise Woman Compound. It just feels so good. And it was wonderful to have you both here because you're also wise people. You too, Paul. And but yes, community, getting, your community together. And you're right, it is all about love and just acceptance. And without love, there's not much. And yeah. And
Without
and
love, it is a cold, dead universe.
yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
A wasteland, as they say. But yes, who was Lee took me up to Victoria, Canada, to talk to one of the carvers, and he said heart to heart, left, or heart to heart.
He's a very famous carver, and I cannot remember his name all of a sudden.
Randy Cook?
No,
No,
Richard
not Randy. Richard Hunt.
Hunt.
Richard
Yeah,
Hunt,
Richard
yeah.
Hunt. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, because being a single woman, I don't get hugged a lot. I have a wonderful dog. That brings me a lot of joy, but I miss the physical hugs from people. And it was so lovely again to have you and Paul here, Laura, because I got lots of hugs and it just is so nourishing. It really is. It's just
Our
nourishing.
bodies hold so much
Yeah.
wisdom
Thank you,
and
Kim.
potentiality
Yeah.
in our temples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thank you,
Thank you for
Kim.
that, Kimberly.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Mwah.
Well,
So
I want to really thank you, Bernice. We have the great privilege of attending conferences and meeting scholars at different places and times. But I want the audience to recognize that having access to someone like yourself and like us, you didn't have to spend thousands of dollars in travel and stay in hotels. And here we can have Bernice right here in your own living room over breakfast and coffee and donut or whatever you eat. And so I just really want to honor you as a scholar and what you brought to the table today, and
and a wise woman.
and definitely a wise woman, and having 2 hours of time with you has just been fantastically
Thank you to
fabulous.
Brian Tucker for the
And Brian, of
introduction.
course.
Thank you.
Monica, I am serious. Let's have these discussions here where we can all join in
Yeah,
and have more
continue to build,
panel
build and
discussions.
build and build.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to be with you. It's been fun. I really believe that we have our energies, our juices going, what we are called to do. It's fun. And so this is great. This has been fun in the best sense of the word. So thank you so much. And Brian, thank you for your patience, the most persevering man I know. He's been asking me to do this for 1,000 years. and he finally got through to me. So thank you for
Good. So glad we could do it.
We'll have
Being a master networker, you're just linking up all these nodes here.
Yep.
So-
Well,
Thank you. It's been wonderful to be with you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope to be more, be able to participate in more postures and such. I had a great time yesterday.
oh,
Thank you.
fabulous. Thank
Such
you.
a
Thank you.
Wonderful addition to our community. We appreciate you.
Good health, everybody. Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Love.
care.
Thank you.